our Valentine's Day with each other. Isn't this odd? Yes. So here's how it works for anybody who's new in the room. Fritz, we all pick a topic, and then we go from that. We gnaw on it for a bit, and then people get mad at me when I tell them to stop. And then we have usually really goofy comments in the chat room. So if they get too goofy, please do not repeat them. And if it gets really off kilter, Hans will say, "Yes, we love dogs. Dogs are wonderful." That's our code word.
I don't think Hans will say that. I saw her show. I don't think you'll say that.
So Fritz, why don't we start with you, because everybody knows the other two. We'll start with you first. If you can give us a brief intro of yourself. We all know each other. This isn't just random. I didn't pick people off the street. I swear. Go ahead. Fritz, tell us what you do for a living.
I'm a cybersecurity professional. That's how I would describe myself. I started in risk management, then eventually, over a period of time, just continuously focus on getting more specialized around cybersecurity. Early on, I saw that was going to be an interesting field and dynamic field to be on, where risk management is stuck, and I don't think things have changed in the risk management since the dark ages. So the risk management wasn't so exciting. So I'm really excited to have been invited. This is my first time, so be kind to me, and looking forward to contribute in whatever small way I can.
Okay, Hans, please introduce them to you, even though the world loves Hans on HAPS, and HAPS loves Hans. You swear I worked on that, eh?
Yes. Well, Good morning, everyone. Hans Ekman. My primary focus right now is on application and portfolio management. However, I do also specialize in innovation and process, streamlining processes and process automation. So excited to be here. Always great to join Michael and friends. The correct title of the show on Sundays. And then also, hopefully you can tune in on Tuesdays and Thursdays around 5:15 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm doing a show that is a kind of crossover between technology, IT news, and how it affects us in our everyday lives. So bringing a lot of it down for both IT professionals and for anyone who just wants to understand what's going on. So thanks for having me again, Mr. Michael.
You're welcome. Okay, Andy, thank you for coming. I actually called Andy, and this is what it was like. Hello? Who is this?
That's right.
No, I don't need my roof reshingled. Thank you.
My first conversation of Valentine's Day was Mike saying, "Can you be my Valentine, please?"
Yeah, that's exactly how it went. So do you want to introduce yourself as well, sir? Just give them a brief intro.
Sure. I'm Andy Neal. I'm an enterprise architect by training. I'm also into the data and analytics space. So I run a lot of teams in data and analytics and everything in between.
Okay. So I want Fritz to start. Fritz, can you talk a little bit about some cybersecurity stuff that's going on? Because that's your specialty. We'll start with that. If you're okay with that.
Absolutely. Yeah, way to throw me under the bus. No, so I don't know. What I would like to talk about is what's top of mind is, various security breaches, right? So you hear about how sophisticated some sophisticated player just breached a company. And I find out about only, again, don't quote me on the statistics, but very little of those attacks are truly sophisticated. Most of them are users not being aware or clicking on a phishing link and then, compromising an enterprise. So, yes, of course, you have the SolarWinds of the world, which is a very sophisticated, state attack type of attack, and you have the NotPetya attack a few years back, which was also Russia attacking, Ukraine. But yeah, aside from those two, most of those great cybersecurity breaches can be root cause and linked to users not doing the right thing and not being aware of what to do.
Can you break that down a bit? because we're going to have some people here that fully understand us, and others are going to think we're talking code. But if you can tell them basically some of the things to be aware of, because like one day I had someone out of the blue, message me, needed to know my personal information because my credit score was different than it was the day before, and I went, "This smells funny."
Yes. So I think it boils down to common sense. Once you understand that the internet is the wild, wild west, right? The internet is not the friendly space where you let your guards down and your kids play free. It is actually a real world and there's a war going on. People don't realize it. There is actually state actors that are actively looking for the soft target out there, right? So when it comes to, as an individual, what you look for is be careful. When you receive an email, unless you absolutely know and was expecting it, just take a few minutes to look at where it came from. What is it asking you to do? Is that in keeping with what you were expecting that person that you were receiving or the organization you were expecting to do? And is it asking you to do something weird, right, that you've never done before? So I think if you apply those very basic items, that's going to save yourself and your credit history and your personal information and the organization you work for a lot of trouble. And that's as basic as it gets. But people receive thousands and thousands of those emails, and every so often one goes through the crack. You click on a link and boom.
That's all they need, right? They only need one, and they're good.
Yeah, exactly.
I can tell you a story. The other day, actually, Fritz and I work for the same organization. Fritz actually caught me the other day. So I've been in IT a long time. I know what I'm doing. And an email came from my boss, and it was something like, I've just sent you the latest update for people and leadership. Please, can you click this link because it was too large? And it was a link to a Dropbox location. I was like, it's a bit unusual for Dropbox, but it happens occasionally. So I clicked that. So I clicked the link, and it just said, "Oh, you've been caught by a phishing attack from the cybersecurity office." It's like, oh man. And it's quite clever because it was something that actually might have happened, and it was like the wording was quite accurate and everything. So you can be very careful these days about what you click and how you click it.
Fritz,
I'm honored that you got busted and I didn't. I submitted patches just going, "Hey, this is a phishing scam," and then 5 minutes later, I'm like, "This isn't a phishing scam. This is us testing the phishing scam." So
that's right.
If this is us testing it, just disregard that. But yeah, we don't use Dropbox.
Yeah.
The other thing that I would love to discuss too while we have you here is people don't realize that people will try to get into your company, try to get close to something that's open, say like one of your laptops, right? And when you look like Fritz does, they want your phone number and they want to call you, right, Fritz?
Right.
They're like, "Hey, who is this guy?"
Not quite.
He's employed.
Not quite.
We may have something here. He's got phishing skills. No, okay.
No, most likely, I think some of what you're talking about is called social engineering, right? So the most likely to be a victim of that social engineering is your front line, your receptionist, the person that's working on the front desk, and often that team or your service desk people, that team is often overlooked in regards to specialized training, right? So because they receive an email from somebody that says, "Hey, I am the CEO," and it appears to be from the CEO, even though it's some random email, and says, "Go buy me, $500 of, gift cards, and then, use the company card, and I'll take care of it later." And you go and do that, and you send them a picture of the cards, and it's gone, right? So they are the most likely target of this sort of social engineering attack. And then it gets increasingly more complex depending if your organization is targeted. But what's going on out there, folks, is that those cyber criminals, whether it's a state actor, which means somebody like China or North Korea or even Iran, or the United States in some instances, they have active cyber activities, right?
Mm-hmm.
What they'll do is they will pick up what's called asymmetric warfare, meaning that they're not going to go straight for the company they're after, but they might go for softer, maybe consulting company or research company that works with the U.S. government or the Canadian government, and they'll target that because they perceive that being a non-government entity, it's an easy way in into those clients, right? So if you get access to an organization like that and you're able to, establish yourself like that, imagine the damage you could do, because they have a trusted relationship between that organization and the US government or the Canadian government or whatever government. And then now they are leveraging that to be able to do wide amount of damage, and this has been the case in many occasions where people were targeted through a third party, whether a consultant. I think it happened with Boeing, happened with a number of organizations.
It's always the weakest link that's the problem, isn't it? I was reading about a story of an attack on a casino, and casino security, as you can imagine, in Vegas is extreme. You can't get anywhere in there, no security. And the way they got in, they found out there was a sensor for a temperature on a fish tank that was in the casino. And that happened to be connected to the same network as the main backbone of the Vegas network system. So hackers got in through a little sensor, innocuous thing that was in a fish tank, broadcasted to that, and that's the way they got into the main network, and they were able to now see all the camera footage, the sales, everything going on from there. So you have to be careful about what's the weakest link in your security and make sure that's as secure and as tight as possible. Interesting.
Well, that's how the U.S. was able to hack in and destroy, temporarily set back Iran's nuclear program and uranium enrichment.
That's right.
They actually put the bug in the software patch to the centrifuges.
It's pretty sneaky.
Overheated it and then kaboom. Yep.
You're not making me feel safe, guys, on a Sunday. What's going on here?
well,
this is a light spiritual show. What are we doing here, brothers? Come on.
It's about being aware.
We're 13 minutes in, and we're talking about annihilating the planet. Okay. So listen, Stacy.
So we're stopping the annihilation.
Stacy says hi to us through the comments here. So does Ari. So many people are watching us. And I noticed we all dressed well today. Look at that. See? Okay.
It's Valentine's Day after work.
There you go. You see?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We got to look good today. You're going to look good. So, Hans, jump in. I know you're done. Get in there, brother.
Yep. So, a little more upbeat. It seems like the individual and personalized attacks, the phishing, the hacking, is either decreasing, or that's more of, we'll call it the entry-level job in the world of cybercrime. But where most of the profit, most of the attacks seem to be, is more towards companies, because you can get a lot of data, or you can lock down their systems and have ransomware. So I'd love to hear from both of you on that, both for the security and the data and architecture, now that they're really coordinated, whether it's criminal organizations or state-sponsored cyber terrorism. How does that shift in focus play out for some of the medium or larger companies who are now targets of these attacks? Or, as you said, Fritz, the smaller companies who are trusted contractors of a government or larger entity, who may be the pathway to get access to the bigger target. So kind of going for the bigger fish.
Well, we've seen that. We've seen that switch, right? You'll get the odd email that asks you and try to phish you as an individual. But what we don't know is whether that email is still targeted to you because you work for an organization and they're trying to get to you through that organization, or it is. But what we've seen is definitely a switch, especially around, it's a buzzword in the industry now. It's been for a while now, ransomware, right? So where you have a computer system that is installed into your enterprise laptop or your personal laptop that immediately encrypts the entire hard drive and then sends information, everything they are captured, to a command and center that is somewhere remotely, and then prevents you from having access to your network, to your files, if you don't pay a ransom. So we've seen that happening, and it's been the prevalent sort of threats happening out there. You're right, the phishing campaigns to individuals and the attack to individual have lowered a bit, but I think it has shifted from personal email attacks to corporate email attacks, and with the primary goal of ransomware. And we've seen the health industry being impacted quite a bit for that, which is, I think, despicable. So I think, yeah, go ahead.
The health industry, I think, is particular because the health industry has almost got a bit more lax in security recently because of COVID and the information sharing and the precedent and the ability to be able to share data and collaborate across many organizations, many different partners, has become more important to save human life than it has been to protect and secure recently, right? And that's just a thing that's happened because of what's going on in the world. So I think people piggybacking on that and exploiting those vulnerabilities is, obviously is very, very nasty. It's just an unfortunate thing that's happening these days, but hopefully we'll go back to a position eventually where we're much more secure again and much more able to defend against these attacks. One of the other things that I've noticed recently with lots of organizations is even small to medium organizations in particular, the best thing they can do is actually go to cloud. It's interesting. Lots of people say, "Oh, cloud, unsecure. My data's out in Office 365 and in Azure and that kind of thing." People think that that's an insecure environment. And as long as you configure it correctly, actually it's much more secure. Microsoft's budget for security for last year was over $1 billion. I bet your company's budget for security is not $1 billion. So use the facilities that are given to you. Use the facilities that are online that you can take advantage of and get your data secured in that manner. That's a much safer way to go actually these days.
Now, folks, you're getting all this information for free. If you find that you feel like your mind is expanding and you're entering new realms of possibility, you are. So listen, can we shift if it's okay? Because we're into 18 minutes. Sure. I told you we can go on forever. Can we go into another topic just for a few minutes?
Sure.
Because I'm feeling unsafe right now. I don't feel like I'm in that.
I have a happy topic to talk about.
Yeah, let's do that. Happy topic, just for a few minutes.
Topic. So in 4 days, we're going to see Perseverance, the rover, land on Mars. That's pretty cool. Space exploration and those kind of things. Now, I worked, I'm going to name drop here because it's very cool. I worked at the Canadian Space Agency for a little while, and I work with NASA as well. And it's very interesting. One of the couple of things I found out while working for them was the rovers that they have for Mars and other places. A lot of the components inside, a lot of the sensors are actually Canadian made and Canadian developed.
Oh, that's awesome.
I had no idea. So obviously it's a NASA vehicle, so it's American chassis and everything like that. But Canadians are particularly good at making sensors and making some of those objects. So there's a lot of Canadian in there as well. So when it lands on the moon, you can think of that as it goes along.
Andy, can you address the comment by Ari here? Because he'll be heard if we don't.
Oh, if I can develop a vendor to do some of my validation and testing because it's their specialty, I will. Yeah, exactly. So, actually deferring some of these topics to people that are specialized in that subject is a good way to go. If you can make sure that we distribute the manufacturing and the making to different parties that are best at doing that, that's what we should be doing. It goes back to the auto trade back in the day, right? So in England, when you buy an Austin Healey way back when, they were terrible cars because British weren't very good at manufacturing, very good at design.
You're not saying nice things about your people, sir.
I know, I apologize. But Germany was very, very good at these things. So eventually what they did was found out that actually if the Germans actually build the cars and put it together, it's a much better way of going than it would be in other countries. It's just different nationalities have different specialties and what they do, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys know what Elon Musk said about would you go up on the first landing to Mars?
No, what you said?
He said, well, there's a probability of 9% rate of survival. I think I could do more good here. I'll wait for 2 or 3 launches before I go.
Excellent.
9%. Wow.
9%.
Wow.
Well, when he did SpaceX, he said he guessed it to be a 7 to 9% chance of success, but he felt like he had to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was Hans with doing his HAP show with me. He thought, there's an 8 to 9%. We might have some success here, but we got to do it.
But there's plenty of people that will sign up, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But you know what they were suggesting at one point, which is, I don't know if this is common knowledge, but they were going to go to inmates.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
Yeah. And say, listen, you can be free. We'll send you. Your survival rate isn't very good. Now, I also could have made that up.
Yeah, that sounds like
I
media
didn't
made
hear.
up an AI.
Yeah. What
Actually,
is interesting
that's from a
about
movie,
Mars?
by the way. That's from a movie. It is. It's from a movie. Yeah.
What's interesting about the Mars sign is that there is a bit of a traffic jam there. There's 3 countries that are orbiting at the same time. I think that's the first time in history. There is the United States, there is China, and United Arab Emirates.
Mm-hmm.
All have either rovers or some sort of Mars mission all happening in the same week. So that's fantastic.
Exactly.
So, Andy, if the components are primarily and sensors are primarily made in Canada, does that mean every time the rover bumps into a rock, it says sorry?
That's right. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't see that. Sorry.
Sorry, need to take a sec. Sorry, sorry. I'll just go over here. Sorry,
Another thing that kind of shattered my my dreams, when you're watching movies about space and you see the guys doing spacewalks on the side of the aircraft and they're tethered by this kind of chain and things.
Yes.
When I was talking to the guys at the space agency, they were like, yeah, if that happens, something's gone very, very wrong. That's not a thing. That's just a film movie thing. If you do a spacewalk, you're attached to a big honking great arm that's got you. You're not going anywhere. Right? Yeah. So in reality, you don't have those kind of spacewalks and stuff. So it's like, oh, that's kind of burst the bubble of the the movies out there.
Andy, can you read the comment here by Richard Roberts? It's interesting.
There's a helicopter on board, also that will be flying the skies of Mars. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, so the actual, and it's interesting how they had to engineer all these things. There's a helicopter on board that's going to, as Richard said, come up and actually do some reconnaissance like a little drone. And it's interesting, they had to engineer these things specifically for the atmosphere in Mars because, of course, the atmosphere is very, very different. So they have to design things all kinds of different ways. And because of the geological events, the types of rocks are different as well. So you have to take into account so many variables to get this right. Actually, one of the things that was interesting when I was working with them was the planning that goes into a launch is just unbelievable because they have one chance to get it right. When they launch, and it costs billions of dollars. So they have to absolutely make sure that everything was right. So they spend 3 years planning for one launch.
Well, it reminds me of just before we started this broadcast, how much effort we put into orchestrating it together, right?
That's right. Yeah.
It was the best 35 seconds of our lives. It was unbelievable. So, Hans, tell us, you want to talk about we'll let you put it in a different direction right now. Put the Mars rover in a different direction.
So one of the things that popped up in the news this week, at least in the States, was, we have a foreign exchange program between universities and professors from all over. It's a cultural exchange, knowledge exchange. But over the last couple of years, because of spying, there was a ban on professors from China specifically and some other areas because there were too many of them were stealing information from the university and bringing it back to the government. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that, because one of the security areas that, whether intentionally or accidentally, can cause the most damage is your internal access control. And what data, what information people have access to, and where they're trusted. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the human side of cybersecurity and limited access, segregation of duties, some of these principles that people may not be as familiar with, but are critical to a sound security program.
Yeah, we define them as insider threats, right? So you have the person that works that either knowingly or unknowingly puts an organization in danger. Now, so in regards to the Chinese situation, this is very unique to China. I don't think that it's been a country that has been so effective at really making sure that their diaspora, which is people from China that live in other countries or have immigrated or second or third generation, have been so very effective at targeting the diaspora to spy for them or to steal information for them. So this is unique to China. I don't think, maybe next to them is maybe Russia, that has been somewhat effective, but I've never seen such an effective program. So I think, that does create some problem from a cybersecurity perspective, because you want to make sure that you apply the principle of, and something that might create a discussion with Andy is access management and the concept of least privilege, right? So what is it that you require to do your job and give you access to nothing else? And if you don't start your organization with that concept from the get-go, it's very, very difficult to migrate, because once you have access to a certain information data set, even if you don't need it on a daily basis, you feel that you're entitled to it just because you used to have access to it. And then when your access is removed, especially if there's not a good change management or good communication, people balk at that. So, I don't know that, Andy, if you want to comment on that, but I think that's the key to success, is making sure that you have buckets of information that is as needed only. And then if you don't need it, you shouldn't have access to it. Like, I have no business having access to any production environment as a cybersecurity professional. I shouldn't.
This is where the security architects of the world or the data architects of the world argue. And I'll tell you why. It's because that as a data person, what I want to do is I want to make data open to everybody immediately. So everyone has access to the data, everything they can, because your employment contract says you keep the data secure. It's your responsibility to keep it secure. You're working for the company, do what's right, do ethical. And understand from a security perspective, you want to make sure that everything's locked down as much as possible so that you only have access to the data you need to do your job. So it's from a data perspective, it stifles creativity, not having access to the data. But there is a balance, and it depends a lot on the culture of the organization and what's happened in the past. If the organization is very kind of military oriented, it's very kind of structured in that way, it's probably okay to give access to a little bit more data because they've got the inbuilt responsibilities and regulations that I'm not going to share data. It's more than my life's worth because I'll be fired immediately. I know that. That kind of organization. Whereas some organizations, the startups of the world, the very kind of new and agile kind of environments, that's probably where you want to go the other direction and say, well, hang on, I'm only going to give you data that you actually need to do your job because I'm fearful that you're going to use the data in the wrong way otherwise. So you have to very much balance that and make sure that you're picking the right model for the right type of organization, the right culture.
Yep. So piggybacking that on Andy, one of the challenges, and Fritz too, about protecting data is where do you apply your access control? So if depending on the system, a lot of the systems like GRC type systems have very heavy security and role-based security built into them. But then when I pull some of that data out into a data mart to make it more accessible so that I can see more of that 360 view, I now may have to replicate that same complex access control model in my data mart. And if I don't have a good data dictionary, if I don't have good mapping, I may not realize it's an information I'm pulling through is restricted or confidential or whatever our classifications are. So let's talk a little bit about where should teams consider applying the security and balancing between native security in an application or centralized security through a data mart, which might have a lower cost of maintenance.
Absolutely. I think there's it's interesting. We're going a bit deep into into the technical territory here, but I think centralizing role-based access control and security is the right thing to do in large environments because, as you say, Hans, you don't want to be replicating the role-based access control and security privileges from your thick client application all the way through your semantic layer in your business intelligence landscape. That's very hard to do. So rather than that, let's make sure that the security from the application is relying on role-based access control and security protocols from a central location. So an enterprise identity access management, for example, would be the right way to go because then you can piggyback on that and have that one component governing how the access works from a semantic view. From that semantic view is like the facade. It's like the way that you access data from a reporting perspective, and of course the operational system as well.
Andy, we have free flowing here. Did you notice, Fritz? Remember, I warned you. This sucker free. There's a lot of free flowing going on here. We've got Lisa here, Highfield, who I believe knows us. I think we're connected. This is just the psychic part of me thinking this right now. We would love to have you on the show in the future if you're open to that. And you can see that the standard of camera ready has gone up with Fritz here. So, but I think you'd still be okay. I think you'd be okay. So Fritz was actually a little bit nervous about coming up. How have you liked it so far, Fritz? Is it good? Because you're rocking it.
It's fantastic. I'm having a lot of fun, more than I should be on Valentine's Day. But
so let's address this question out of respect for Lisa. Okay, thank you.
Of course, yeah. Is there a risk profile standard for could use to understand? Oh, that's interesting. I'm part of a team within Asaka, which I hold some certification from them, and that very same question is being asked. We have a beautiful piece of, again, I'm not trying to promote the company I work for's research, and I don't always agree with the research, but in these cases, I absolutely thought that it's a brilliant piece of research. And I encourage Lisa to take a look at it. It's called the Security Strategies Research. It's a fantastic piece of doing exactly what you're asking for here. So it takes you through a story of understanding your organization's business goals, and then taking that into consideration your regulatory environment, and then once you have all that, you do a self-assessment of your security capabilities, and then you compare it to a CMMI, if you're familiar, which is a sort of a maturity model for how well you're doing security, and then from there you can describe a strategy. So I think that's a great piece of research that will really help you, and I'm sure that Mike will be able to share a link to that research. I'll provide it to Mike, and Mike will find some way to get that to Lisa.
Fritz, when you talk, my brain hurts. That's a lot of in-depth information. I feel like smoke's coming out of my ears.
All right, so
does not compute.
Bottom line, we have good research for that, and I'll be happy to provide Lisa with a link to be able to get that going.
I love the depth of the show, guys. This is unbelievable today. Can we go in maybe a little lighter direction now? Is that okay?
Before we do that, can I answer Hans' question? I think in regards to the data lake that he's talking about.
Sure.
I think one of the key, and I think even Andy, even though we're often on different side of the equation, Andy will agree. You can't effectively protect data unless you classify your data, right? So I think the key to having the proper access to data and giving the proper access is making risk-aware decision. And the only way you do that is by classifying your data. So you know that, okay, this data is considered restricted. Do I really want to put in a data mart? Or this data is public? Yeah, let's share it with everybody in the world, right? So I think the key to success is to proper access management is actually data classification, and which is very difficult to do.
Exactly.
Fritz, if this doesn't work out, I'm thinking politics. You've got a warm, fuzzy feeling going on here, even though I don't fully understand what you're saying.
Power corrupts. Why do you want to corrupt me, Greg? I'll be a terrible dictator.
Okay, Andy, come up with something light. We're gonna just light for a little bit. Yeah, anything light, you guys.
Something very light. How about GameStop? Let's talk about GameStop. That's still technology focused. So interesting, the volatility of the shares at GameStop right now, because as I understand, it came about because a bunch of people on Reddit were kind of coming together and talking about the shares, and it pushed the volume, the price of the shares up. Then people on Wall Street started going, "Ooh, hang on, what's the little spike over there? Hang on, let's get on that action as well." So they jumped in as well. So it's gone for a roller coaster ride right now. I'm not sure where it stops or where it's going to go or what's going to happen. It reminds me now of Bitcoin. It's kind of that volatility. What are your guys' thoughts on there, and what happens next?
So I'll say it's the situation I think is a little shift from that, which is a group on Reddit started talking about how the hedge funds were betting against certain companies and selling them short. So they knew what the hedge funds were doing to manipulate the market, and then got people together to do the opposite. So they swung the market the other way, causing the hedge funds to take a bath, which then rippled through their other stocks and investments, because now they had to cover those losses. So they had to sell off other shares and other funds to cover, and that caused this market drop. So I think part of it is it ethical for organized companies to manipulate the market for profit versus individuals to get on a social platform and do the same thing? And can we even control it? Like, is it okay that companies are potentially bankrupting or hurting our retirement and individual stocks to make these short-term profits?
Yeah, that's right. And I'm not sure, I'm not sure how to govern that or how to control it. It's a very distributed kind of system. So I'm not sure how you put mechanisms in place to control that. I think it's ethically, I think it would be a good thing to control it to some extent, because you're hurting individuals, and the very rich that are doing these short-term tradings are obviously getting richer. So the disparity between the super rich and the middle class are becoming larger. So I don't like that aspect, but I'm not sure how to fix it. I'm not sure there's a solution to this to make it better or to govern it better.
Yeah. I think let the market fix itself. This is like capitalism at, that's exactly the sort of thing we would expect in a healthy capitalist market, where, you have a group. I've seen firsthand how, for example, shorts, what do you call them? Short stoppers?
Short trading, you call it.
Yes.
Well, yeah, short traders have impacted a company, a Canadian company like BlackBerry. For years, they have artificially punished BlackBerry in unreasonable ways for no apparent reason. And now suddenly there was a shift, and regardless of what BlackBerry was doing, they were always being punished by the short traders. So I think let the market figure itself out. I think it's healthy for market to have different views and different swings, and for different group of people to swing the muscle. I say let the market figure it out. Let's not try to fix it for the market. That's when we get in trouble with too much regulation. Let it figure it out. It's a free market. Going in that there's going to be some volatility. Buckle up. It's going to be a bumpy ride.
Absolutely. And I think interesting topic on Bitcoin, which is very related, is the Bitcoin is going up again right now because Mr. Musk again has invested a whole bunch in Bitcoin. And saw the volume up as well. I just wish I had my Bitcoin still. I invested in Bitcoin about 18 months ago. I just put $1,000 in just to see kind of how it would play out. And I sold it again for 1,100. So I made like 10%, which is fine.
Well, listen, Hans called me back in time and said, look, you should buy these when they're 20 cents.
Buy these when, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, buy these at 20 cents. Like, you can't go wrong. Listen, you don't need coffee or food. Just buy Bitcoin. You'll be set. You'll have lots of stakes in the future.
If at the very start you'd have bought $5 of Bitcoin, you'd be a millionaire by now, right?
Okay, we're at 40 minutes. We've been rocking. This is a great show, by the way. Good job, guys. Really good. But now we're going to go into the flowery side just for a moment. Can we go into the flowery side, the spiritual side of Michael, the woo side of Michael? Strap it down, Michael. Come on, brother. All right. So here's the thing I want to talk about just for a minute: COVID fatigue. People getting fed up. I'm seeing signs everywhere. My business is essential. My church is essential. And I thought, I don't want you guys tearing up when you think about church, okay? But I want. Do you think that when will they be back, where they'll be able to worship together? And I know Hans is really wanting to hug the people, right, Hans?
Well, according to the latest district court in California, that's today. They ruled that you can't ban church assemblies, and we'll see if that gets appealed. But at the moment, those limits don't apply to churches here. So I think it's going to be up to the individual organizations to decide what's best for their members, whether that's a church, whether it's any sort of group, because they have found that churches, weddings, funerals are super spreader events. So if you are going to an event where you're spending an amount of time in a close, confined space, especially if people aren't wearing masks, if someone's infected, a lot of other people are going to come away too. So I think it's going to be up to the groups and to decide what's best for their members. But individually, we're responsible. I don't go to group gatherings because I don't want to put myself at risk. And I wear an N95 equivalent mask anytime I'm in a confined space like shopping.
Yeah, I've gone that way as well. We don't go out anymore at all. We go out once a month, something like that. And it's interesting that we haven't actually, we live in Canada, right? So it's very snowy up here. And my driveway is still full of snow because why am I clearing? I'm not going out. I don't care. And all the other street, and on my street, you can see everyone's clearing up their snow.
Group settings are dangerous. I've been told. We're in a group.
So yeah, stay at home.
Yeah, it's not easy, right? I like to consider myself a fairly spiritual guy, and I do miss and I do miss the interaction. But what I like with the organizations that I'm involved with is that they've moved to a Zoom platform. While it's not perfect, and it's not available for everybody, you can't reach all the same people. It is a healthier alternative than putting 500 people in a short, closed area. So I think the challenge is up on for those religious organizations to think of it as, what can we do using the technology we have in this century to allow our people to congregate and safely have that spiritual connection without putting their life in danger, especially Fritz, where a lot of those. Go ahead. Yeah,
Fritz. We've got people in here, and they're getting weird. Okay. God can't protect his children in his own house. This is one of the. Hans Ekman is the wolf of Michael Bather's broadcast. What does that mean? Let's go
I'll
deeper.
take it as a compliment and assume good faith or good intent.
And Ari doesn't want us to talk about church anymore. He wants us to get right to Donald Trump.
It's interesting. When I've gone to church before, because I'm an engineer, right? I'm an architect. So when I go to a church, I'm actually looking at the buildings. Churches are beautiful buildings. And when you go inside, you're looking at the architecture inside and the sculptures and the carvings and the way it's structured and the way it's fastened together. And it's just, I could spend hours in there just looking at how it's built. I grew up in England on the south coast in a town called Eastbourne. And there's actually a church. There was actually a pub I used to go to, and it was one of the oldest pubs in the south coast. And it was built in 1610, and the church next door was built in 1612. So they turned up, they built a pub, so they've got somewhere to drink, and then they built the church. I thought that was quite cool.
So here's a really cool comment, and I totally agree with this, and it gives me warm, fuzzy feelings, like having Fritz in the broadcast today. These are times when we are thankful for technology, and that's from Walt. And I am so grateful for you guys to be here today. Thank you so much. And the collective energy and us having these warm, fuzzy feelings for each other on Valentine's Day says a lot about us. It really does. Did everybody get a nice card for the wife? You guys you're good? Did you make a card? Did you? No.
I'm making one later with my daughter. We've got a session planned later to make one.
Okay, good. You got to have a plan.
Yeah.
I followed her instructions and got one of the giant Reese's peanut butter cups shaped like something that wasn't a peanut butter cup. And she said, that's all I want. That's all you're giving me and nothing else. So there may be a small jewelry gift that's coming from the dogs.
Can we briefly talk about the impeachment with Donald? Yeah. Is that okay before we go? Okay.
Sure.
Go for it.
If you insist.
I insist because, we're here for the people, right? There is no us without them. And we appreciate. And even Captain Rehab is having a good time. Now, you know what I mean? So if Captain Rehab is having a good time in the business chat, you're doing something right. But we got to serve the people.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we can address that, everybody, and make it fairly short, and then we'll do the gratitude piece, and we'll do peace, love, and soul at the end. Okay. Go ahead.
So I'm based out of Atlanta, so I apologize to the world on behalf of some of the great things we do. I've been spending too much time with my Canadian friends, so sorry for the bad stuff we do. You're welcome, Netflix, and everything else we do. So the hard part is, I think we're hitting a low point in politics where partisan fighting and the desire to destroy the other party to gain power is superseding reason. Forgetting the fact that Donald Trump is a narcissist and he will say or do anything to get more popular. I think the impeachment was a political play. There was no chance of winning it. He's out of office. He's gone. Just let it go. Let it go. Focus on the good things. And I think this political play is not a good precedent. And regardless of what he did and how bad he wanted to win and thought and may honestly believe that he did win, I don't think it rose to the level that we should be using impeachment just to get somebody else out of office or prevent them from running as a way of winning elections. It was designed to remove horrible people from office who were unfit to serve, and the electors did that.
I think the reason that people are so entrenched in this impeachment proceeding is because they're fearful that Trump will come in again and then I'll have to go through it when he comes back in again, because he's going to run again, I suspect, if he's not impeached. And
he hasn't called you. He hasn't called you, Andy.
I think he did the other day. Yeah, he said he's going to go.
Yeah, he said, like if I need some stats done quick, and I need you to crunch some numbers, see what my potential is.
Exactly.
Yeah, he didn't call you yet.
I think the other point to the impeachment process is that if he does get impeached, I understand he loses all of the presidential privileges that go with a retired president, right? As well. So there's other aspects to it as well. But as Hans said, it's not going to happen. I don't think. The chances are very unlikely because it would mean a lot of the Republicans changing and voting for impeachment, which is, I guess, quite unlikely.
Well, they voted it down. They lost. Like they voted to acquit. So They did not swing all the votes they needed, which wasn't a surprise.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Did everybody circle that? Did you circle that, Fritz, or did you say no?
I have the right to remain silent because everything I say will be used against me in a court of law. I've lived in the U.S. for 13 years. I lived in Florida. I went to school in Florida. I went to school in Tampa, actually, and Miami. So, one principle that goes to, if you don't have anything positive to say about the situation, I'd rather stay quiet, I think, on this one. I really can't contribute to or not attempting to change anybody's mind or things like that. I think at the end of the day, if you want to change the world, focus on yourself. Be the best you can be, and that's where I'm going to live it. I cannot control what's happening south of the border. I cannot control what even my own prime minister does. What I can control is how I conduct myself, how I react myself, and how and if I do, and when I do get the vote, I do choose to get to vote, and I vote with my conscience. So I'll leave it at that. Yeah.
Actually, go ahead, Andy.
Go on, Hans. I'm sorry. I was going to say I became a Canadian last year, so it's the first time I will have a chance to vote next time. But it's interesting that you can vote in Canada. Thank you. So you can vote in Canada, of course, for the Prime Minister, but so much influence happens from America, right? Because the economy of America is so much larger than Canada. There's so much influence from America. So, and we have no say in that. You've just got to stay by the sidelines and watch while all the politics happens. And it's a shame because it's almost like a soap opera nowadays when you look at it. So hopefully we're going to get back to normal again.
Speaking of soap operas, I can't say the comments that are going on in here, but if you guys need a chuckle, you've got to see the conversations. And this is what happens every time we bring up Donald. You have those who absolutely love him, think he's the Messiah, and then you have the others that think he might be on fire. There you go. And that rhymes. It's all good.
Yep.
But
at this point, I'm following the great philosopher, Mr. Michael Jackson, who said, I'm starting with the man in the mirror.
That's right.
Yes.
Love it. I love it.
Fritz,
that's going to be on my Instagram feed today.
Yeah.
Thank you, Hans.
Yeah, well, Michael Jackson wasn't exactly perfect either. So let's.
Who is Mike?
You, buddy. You for
No,
sure.
You're the
I'm not. I'm working on being Fritz.
I have plenty skeleton in my closet.
Okay. I don't believe that's sick. So we're going to end the show soon. We're at 52 minutes. We always end it with a dose of gratitude. And Hans always looks at me like, oh, God, not again. And so all my shows I end that way. We state why we're grateful. Hans, do you want to be last or first?
I'll kick it off. So give Andy and Fritz a time to come up with something as well. Yeah. I'm going to be real shallow and selfish here. We've seen massive blizzards and storms come through North America. Really feel bad for the people affected. Like Andy said, he's got feet of snow blocking his driveway. So I'm most thankful that on this extended holiday weekend, even though it's rainy and foggy and dreary, the temperature is outstanding. We've been in the high 40s, low 50s all weekend. So I'm just glad I don't live further up north. I'm glad I failed on Minnesota.
we the north. I'm thankful that actually that I get to work at home now, and it's becoming acceptable. Even when COVID is over, I think it's going to be still acceptable to spend a lot of time working at home. And what working at home means for me is I had the other day, I'm back-to-back meetings all day, every day. But one of the meetings got cancelled, so I had an hour free. So in that hour, I took my daughter, we went sledding on a little hill around the corner, just for an hour. And it was really cool. In the middle of the day, said to Eva, let's go sledding. So we just went for 40 minutes and went down the hill a few times. I fell on my butt quite a few times in the snow, and it was great fun. And I came back home again. There's no way you can do those spontaneous things if you were at work, right?
She'll remember that forever too. Those are the memories that your kids remember forever.
Right.
As long as you don't break your tailbone, you're good.
You're good to go.
Yeah. Fritz, can you answer this one? Is this within your wheelhouse of humanity? Go ahead.
Yes, I can, and I think that's going to create some hate toward me, but because of where I'm located. So just a bit of context, right? So I work for a wonderful organization, and around June of last year, I asked my boss, would you be open to me working in the Caribbean for a 4-month period? And would you be open to that suggestion since we're already working from home? And he went to HR, and HR approved it. And now I'm working out of St. John, Antigua, which is a fantastic. And to do that, I had to do a lot of work rent my entire home, move everything to a garage. I mean, it did require some logistic. But I'm grateful to be able to be part of an organization that allows these things to happen. And I'm grateful to be able to have this experience because I brought my daughter with me. My son is in the health services. He could not be there. He's frontline, so couldn't be here. But to be able to experience this and being in a warm part of similar to maybe a little hotter than ants, but to be able to do that and it's a bit of bittersweet because at the same time I'm very grateful and I'm thankful for that. At the same time, I think about all my friends that are stuck. For example, in Alberta, I have a lot of friends in Alberta that are stuck in a very small one-bedroom apartment and don't have the opportunity to do this sort of thing. So it's bittersweet for me, but I say I'm mostly grateful to be able to experience that with my family. Yes. And yeah, so that's what I'm grateful for, and grateful for being invited today. This is way much fun, too much fun for me, Mike.
I told you it would be. You didn't believe me.
I know.
I said, look, I said Hans is off the chain. If you can be one of his friends and you can be in the room, your life will be elevated to new levels of joy and bliss every day.
Well, Fritz, I'm so jealous because that's one of the places, you know how there's destinations that you go to and people say, I went to this place and I fell in love and that's where I want to spend my life. And we keep going to different places. My brother lived in Charleston. I went to Costa Rica. St. John was one of the few places where I was like, I could live the rest of my life here and be happy, even though I could only get fresh food once a week.
Yeah. Exactly. You know, and it's a small island. It's only less than 1,000 people. It's what the Caribbean was meant to be. It's not, you know, some of the other islands are heavily populated. There is, you know, broad poverty. But for Antigua, it seems to be more balanced, right? 98% literacy rate. People are super friendly. And they have a no-nonsense approach to pandemic. Pretty much, you don't wear your mask. Forget about the non-maskers thing. You will be in prison, and you'll be charged $25,000. So how do you like that? So, so they have a no-nonsense, and that has kept them to low numbers. I think they have less than 500 cases on the island. So, yeah. So I'm really grateful for that. And you know, and once hopefully we find a solution to this pandemic thing. Anybody I can make it to Antigua, please feel free. You're invited at my house.
Okay, I'll be there tomorrow. I wish you well. So what is the current temperature there, sir? Right now, what?
It's 28 and breezy.
Breezy. Okay, and right here it's
28
minus
Celsius.
Yeah,
Celsius.
It's -8 and freezy. Thank you.
I told you I was going to get a little bit of hate for that, right? So, but I felt that I would disclose it, right?
Well, so happy for you, man. That's great.
Yeah, but explains your good mood. You're getting all that vitamin D you need, right?
I'm telling you.
Well, you know, as soon as they open the Trinidad and Tobago borders, I'm down in Trinidad because I've lived there for quite a long time, and I'm going to go back there as soon as they open. So for me, I'm same thing, same as you. I want to be in the Caribbean.
Yeah, Walt says he's just a guy in the comments. He's booking a flight. So hey, I wish you well.
And Andy, I paved the way. So if you ask the organization, you say, "Well, Fritz did it. So how come you're not letting me do it?"
Oh, I asked them already about a month ago. They said, "Yeah, that's fine. I've got pre-approval."
Perfect.
The other thing we haven't brought up, because we are talking about work, for some reason we've all been blessed that our company is thriving during this pandemic.
Yeah.
Our numbers are phenomenal, and thank God, because all of us here are very blessed. Now, with me being on this HAP show, I see people all the time, and I see the other side of it, where they haven't worked for 6 to 8 months. They're going crazy. You can only bake so much bread. So my gratitude part is for, you know, Joel McLean and being ever so kind to me throughout this and the many, many jobs I've had. I don't know if anybody fully knows what I used to do. I used to just drive the elevator every day. And through this pandemic, I was able to meet these people and talk to them. And I did that for a good 5 months at the beginning, where I just reached out and talked to people to see if they were okay. And if you can, you know, today, anybody that's watching the replay, if you know someone's not well right now, because mental health is not great for a lot of people, please reach out to them. And if you can, just for a minute, just imagine that you're Fritz and you'll feel better. You'll be warmer. Just for a minute, just say, I'm Fritz. I'm Fritz. All right. Thanks, guys. This has been great. I wish you the very best this week. And tomorrow is Family Day in Canada. And I really felt like I got to spend some time with my extended family today. Take care.